What's happening, fantasy football experts, fantasy football fanatics, fantasy football fans out there? Ryan Thomas coming to you live on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast's first Ryan Thomas Fantasy Football Mock Draft Show, the first overall pick. What's awesome about this show is that you are going to see me draft live and see me draft how I will draft if I, in fact, had the first overall pick in a natural redraft league. I say natural redraft. Each year you're drafting a new team in a redraft league. Who would I go with if I had the first overall pick? This draft starts in 1 minute. You got the Thomas Take logo, my personal Yahoo profile, ready and raring to go to pick first overall. Who will I take? That's the big question. Who am I going to go with first overall if I, in fact, was in this situation? Seeing how I draft at this pick will enlighten you all on how you should draft if, in fact, you hold the first overall draft choice in your fantasy draft. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. I greatly appreciate love and support from Bills Mafia today. The newest episode outside of this one, of course, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast with Kari Demos in a Buffalo Bills 2021 season preview episode. You guys will be able to get your reaction, or my reaction, I should say, to how I see this Bills season shaking out. So the draft is loading. We're waiting patiently on this draft to load and open. Fake punt 8106680. And we got the first overall pick, and I'm excited to have this pick. It's going to allow me to kind of show everybody, who I would take if I, in fact, had that first overall pick. For those of you that have been tuning into the show each and every episode, you will see why I pick who I pick. So here we have Christian McCaffrey, number 1, Dalvin Cook, number 2, Ezekiel Elliott, number 3, Derrick Henry, number 4. I like to look at statistics based on last season. You go to rushing yards. Obviously, Dalvin Cook was the number 1 rusher in the NFL in terms of yards, rushing touchdowns as well. These are projections. Actually, for this season, based on yards, Dalvin Cook was not the number 1 rusher, actually. He was the number 2 rusher. Number 1 rusher based on season stats last year, not projections heading into this season. Sorry for the mix-up there. Was Derrick Henry, 17 rushing touchdowns, followed by Dalvin Cook at 16 rushing touchdowns here, as well as Jonathan Taylor with 11 touchdowns, the Indianapolis Colts in his first season here in Indianapolis. So looking at some of these running backs here and how they're rated, based on the 2020 stats. We go to quarterbacks here, and we got, in terms of 2020 stats, Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady in terms of yards, Matt Ryan, and of course, our favorite quarterback, Josh Allen, 4,544 passing yards, 37 TDs, and 10 interceptions. He's projected by Yahoo to throw for 4,909 passing yards this year, which would be an increase, of course, from last season, 38.3 touchdowns, but a couple more interceptions with about 200 more rushing yards. So average ADP, average draft position for our quarterback, Josh Allen, 29.7 overall. We go to just players, ranking them, top to bottom. Look at all these running backs. I mean, McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, Alvin Kamara, Nick Chubb, Cleveland Browns, Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, not nearly rated as high as he was, last year, due in large part to the fact that he was hurt. He blew out his knee. So he's a huge question mark for fantasy owners. What can they expect from him? So here we go. The draft is starting. First overall pick. Who am I going to go with? In my heart of hearts, I got 30 seconds to pick each pick. But in my heart of hearts, I can't convince myself otherwise to not select Derrick Henry with my first overall selection. I talked about it on the show I think Derrick Henry is a lock for your fantasy squad. We see Dalvin Cook go second overall. We don't have many auto pickers in this mock draft, only two. Pedro with the third overall pick, and I think Brock with the sixth overall pick, as well as Mike with the 10th overall pick. We got Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey going there third overall. As we kind of go through this mock draft here, I went with Derrick Henry. I had to. Okay, I look at Derrick Henry and what he did last year. It's too tough to pass up the 2,000 yards and the 17 rushing touchdowns. And as Yahoo projects, and I agree with this projection, that Derrick Henry's rushing yards will go down to, I don't know, quite as low as Yahoo believes at 1,561. But I think he could be in like the 1,600, 1,700 range with 14, 15 touchdowns. And this is based on the new acquisition of Julio Jones. So now I got my number one running back, my bell cow back, somebody that has stayed healthy and has been extremely durable. That's why I went with that selection of Derrick Henry here. And we got a long time before we pick again. So, with that first overall pick, you want to make sure that by the time 20 and 21 comes around, that you have, a solid group of players with your first three picks here, and guys that are reliable, guys that are durable, guys that, you can count on each and every week to be mainstays in your lineup. A ton of running backs went in that top 10. To recap it here, since I picked Henry, we got Cook, McCaffrey, Jones, Kamara, all five picks, top five running backs, all five running backs. Stephon Diggs goes 11th overall in this mock. Jonathan Taylor shortly thereafter, Austin Eckler, 13th overall. So now we're inching closer to turn our attention. We can kind of start to look at who we should go with here with the 20th and 21st overall pick in your fantasy football draft. If you're picking first overall, a lot of people feel like they're plagued with a curse when they draw that first overall pick out of the hat, or if they finished last season, they feel like they won the lottery, so to speak, the NHL fantasy football lottery, to get that first overall pick. We got some big names on the board here flying off. Travis Kelce goes 15th overall. No shock there. I'm shocked he actually didn't go sooner, being the tight end is pretty shallow. Antonio Gibson and rookie running back out of Bama, newest Pittsburgh Steeler, Najee Harris. Calvin Ridley, 18th overall. So now we're at 20 and 21. Who do we go with here? If we are picking, we got a decision to make here. For the sake of this draft, I'm not going to go quarterback with either one of these picks. I'm going to wait on a quarterback just in terms of my draft strategy. Typically, that's what I like to do. I understand that Pat Mahomes is still available. It's really tough to subconsciously pass that up. I'm going to go with KC's Clyde. Actually, I went with Justin Jefferson, and which that's a fine pick to me. I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson, and I'm actually going to go with DK Metcalf. I'm not going to take a quarterback here. I'm going to go fill my needs, fill the wide receiver position with two back-to-back there, with two different bye weeks as well. Justin Jefferson at bye week of week 7, DK Metcalf bye week of week 9. So I have Jefferson, Metcalf, and Henry. I don't think 30 seconds is simply enough, but it is what it is. That's rounding out this roster is really what's important. I think quarterback is extremely important, but if this was a 2-quarterback league, I definitely would have shifted gears towards Mahomes. I was thinking about it, but I decided, I'm going to go with Metcalf. Talk about a season, and I talk about a player that has been steadily improving. DK Metcalf has been that guy and then some for Russell Wilson. Justin Jefferson had a phenomenal season last year with the Minnesota Vikings. Talking about him, he does have some injury concerns as well, but I expect more of the same from Justin Jefferson. A 1,400-yard season, double-digit touchdowns, I think is likely. I know Minnesota's a run-first team, but I think they're looking to tone that down and lessen the workload on Dalvin Cook a little bit. He went through a massive workload last season, and I think spreading the ball around is the way to go if you are the Minnesota Vikings. So Pat Mahomes goes 29th overall. I still feel like we have an opportunity to get a really good quarterback here in the 4th or 5th round if we, in fact, decide to do so. I'm not really liking some of these names here. CeeDee Lamb is a little bit of a new, fresh face that I think will have a real good year this year. Chris Godwin, obviously, is a solid player. Just as I mentioned, CeeDee Lamb, he gets drafted. J.K. Dobbins gone. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, 2 receivers that Tom Brady's thrown to, 2 receivers that Matt Stafford will be throwing to, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Miles Sanders, running back out of the Philadelphia Eagles organization. Mari Cooper, DeAndre Swift, Josh Allen. Obviously, if I'm looking quarterback here, we're waiting on 34 to 40. Would it be too early to go quarterback here is the question. I think this group of players here between Godwin, Evans, Darrell Henderson Jr., who should be force-fed a ton of touches in this Rams offense. Rams offense should be better going from Jared Goff to Matt Stafford. Should be much better. We go from 36, 37, 38, 39 is a 4th, 5th round draft choice too early to take a quarterback here. I think there's some guys in here that I would really like to take, and I'm going to use the draft strategy of possibly, depending on who's there, waiting as long as possible to take a quarterback. Average ADP for Josh Allen in this mock draft, system on Yahoo Sports is 29.7. So, Billy LeBud is picking 39th. Okay. So now we got a decision. We got a quarterback. We got a running back. Let's go with Miles Sanders here. I think he's going to get his touches. I'm going Miles Sanders, my second running back, pairing him with Derrick Henry. And yes, 5th round draft choice. We got him late. His average ADP, average draft position, I should say, 29.7. We're doing it. We're going Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, quarterback, 41st overall. So now this team is shaping up to be pretty damn good. I got Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders. And this is all with the first overall pick, mind you. So you see the strategy that I implemented. I took Henry first. He's a workhorse running back. I then doubled down on wide receivers to fill those needs right out of the chute here. Justin Jefferson and DK Metcalf, 2 receivers that I like, and I like them because they're young. They're young. They're going to get their touches. They're going to get their targets, most importantly. And Miles Sanders, I think, we haven't seen the best out of him yet. And I drafted him 40th overall. To take him 40th overall with an average draft position of 36.4, a couple picks after his average draft position. We look at the presumed standings here. I'm projected to have most total points based on who I've drafted so far, quarterback, wide receiver, running back. So this is really where the drafting becomes fun. I don't have to necessarily worry about a quarterback for a little while now that I have Josh Allen, who is rated as one of the top 3 fantasy quarterbacks this season. Tight end position, though, that's something that I'd like to take a look at here in this next round. We have an empty spot there. Let's try to fill it. TJ Hawkinson, Tyler Higbee, Robert Tonyan, Logan Thomas, Dallas Goedert. Mike Gesicki is somebody that I really like as a future, player as well. Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, is there value there with these 2 guys being 2 new pieces? We see the average draft position of both of these players. Hunter Henry's at 123, and Jonnu Smith is at 132. So I can wait if I want to go that route. I can wait a little while and kind of just fill my bench up. We have Dak Prescott still available. Do I go quarterback back to back, in the 5th and 6th round, taking Allen in the 5th and Dak Prescott in the 6th. Looks like it could be a possibility, but Russell Wilson's still out there. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Damian Harris, Kareem Hunt, Mike Davis. These are running backs. I mean, Damian Harris, he had a solid season last year, as solid a season as you could have, but average draft position for Damian Harris is 87. And I like to look at average draft position in particular with running backs. I feel like it's pretty important. Do we take a flyer on Javonte Williams out of on the Denver Broncos as a rookie? That's something that is a possibility here. I believe Travis Etienne is gone, who's someone I was looking at. Got some options here. We got some options at running back. I am going to go take a look at tight end. I don't see really anything worth taking here this early. So I am going to go add to my running back depth here. This is where you really can make your money, make or break your draft. I'm going with Raheem Mostert of the San Francisco 49ers. He's one of the fastest backs in the league. Had a down year last year due to injury. And I'm also going to go, maybe we go with another quarterback here. I'm going to go with Matt Stafford because hypothetically, God forbid, Josh Allen were to go down. I think Matt Stafford, and I profile Matt Stafford. Normally, I would never take a quarterback in the 5th and 7th round, but I'm changing things up a little bit here. I'm not going defense this early. I'm not going tight end this early with the average draft position of some of these players. Was Matt Stafford a bit of a reach here, drafted 61st, when his average draft position is 94? Yes. But when you look at the potential on that offense with Matt Stafford, Yahoo has Matt Stafford projected for 5,284 yards, 32 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. If this was a 2-quarterback league, which that's majority of what I play in, I'd lose my you-know-what if I had Allen and Matt Stafford as my 2 quarterbacks. Realistically, I think the Rams and Bills could be playing each other in the Super Bowl this year if, in fact, the Tampa Bay Bucks do not get it done. Tom Brady goes 67th overall. Could have went with Brady, but I like this new acquisition of Matt Stafford on this team. And I like that I added a Raheem Mostert as a flex running back. We do have some receivers out there. I'd like to maybe head in that direction. Mostert for me was somebody that I wanted to take rather than Damian Harris. Stay away from that New England backfield, as I always have and always will. Running backs, you have Chase Edmonds, you have David Johnson, you have Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon, Ronald Jones. These weren't names that really jumped out at me as guys to take. I'd rather make sure that I have not one but 2 good quarterbacks coming out of this draft, rather than taking Hunter Henry, who was listed as 123, and Jonnu Smith, who was listed at 133. I went Matt Stafford as my first bench player, and it's a quarterback that I expect to have a really phenomenal season this year. Maybe could be playing in a Super Bowl. I really believe that. We're coming up to our pick again here. Who could we go with that provides us with some value here as a bench addition? And Kenny Galladay, a new wide receiver for the New York Giants, he stands out to me. Odell Beckham Jr., can he return to form coming off of this injury? Is the talent too good to pass up OBJ? Is the talent too good to pass up? Chase Claypool goes. Chase Claypool is now gone. Deebo Samuel is out there. A big fan of Deebo. I like Deebo a lot. So now we're going to be adding more to our bench. And typically I want my bench to be a team in and of itself that I could actually start given certain bye weeks or just based on the talent level of the player. And I think I'm going to go with 2 wide receivers here. When I look at who's there, I really like, some of the talent that we have at these positions, and I think we got to take bye into consideration. I'm going to go with OBJ and Kenny Galladay back to back. Hope that Debo is on the board at my next pick. I'd love to have him on the bench as well. But look who I have at my bench so far. Matt Stafford, OBJ, and Kenny Galladay. That's pretty damn good. Those are 3 guys that could easily start for you if, in fact, you have an injury. This is shaping up to be a pretty solid roster. I haven't even drafted a tight end yet. I've already drafted 2 quarterbacks. I've already drafted 3 running backs and Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, and Raheem Mostert. I really like what I have there. Receiver-wise, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, as well as OBJ and Kenny Galladay. Deebo Samuel does go 1 pick after I select Kenny Galladay, so, Billy LeBud was on the right track. He was on the right wavelength with me. As far as Deebo Samuel, I really like him as well, but I just like the new addition of Kenny Galladay to the Giants, ultimately replacing OBJ as OBJ's in his 3rd season now with Cleveland. Hoping for better things from him. I think it's worth the risk, taking him, 80th overall, player of his talent level. That's huge. Now we can look towards maybe a defense before a tight end. Not too crazy about, reaching for any of these guys, whether it's Logan Thomas, Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki. You can kind of let the board kind of flow to you at that point without overreaching on a tight end. Let's face it, if you're not getting Travis Kelce, if you're not getting, some of these tight ends that have been drafted already, Kelce, Waller, Kittle, Hockenson, Kyle Pitts, rookie out of Florida, Atlanta Falcons rookie tight end. If you're not getting any of these top 5 guys, including Andrews, I'm not going to reach for Higbee. I'm not going to reach for Tanyan. I really don't see much of a difference between Gesicki and Tanyan or Gesicki and Higbee this year. I think, Mike Gesicki could have highly comparable numbers to those 2 tight ends. So maybe Gesicki is going to be available for us here at the 100th overall draft choice. Average ADP, average draft position, I should say. I've said that a few times on the show. ADP, average draft position, 113 from Mike Gesicki, somebody that I really like. Maybe we double up at tight end. Maybe we double up just to say, hey, screw it. Let's get this tight end issue out of the way. Michael Thomas drafted really late in this draft as well. Keep your eye out for him. Based on the injury concern that the Saints have, might not be playing for the first little bit of the season here. We're now moving forward into the 10th and 11th round. I'm feeling like I could be pretty confident that Mike Gesicki is going to be available here for me with the 100th overall draft choice. We got 2 guys on auto pick. Let's take a look at the top of the board. We do have Juju Smith-Schuster available. I'm a big Juju fan. I don't quite know what to make of Big Ben, though. I'm a little concerned about that. I will say, though, in terms of the receivers that are available, he does jump out at me. I feel like in Tampa Bay, Leonard Fournette might be the power guy, but Ronald Jones Jr. I felt really good about. I'm going to go with Juju Smith-Schuster here. 100th overall. Average draft position is 89. And then Noah Fant has fallen to us. I just came to the realization Noah Fant has fallen to us. Who do I trust more, Drew Lock or Tua? You guys know I'm not the biggest Tua fan. So I'm going to go with Noah Fant here. 101st overall. And the average draft position for Fant is 77. So that's great value. You look at the year that Noah Fant had last year, as it says here on the ticker stat sheet, 673 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. Tight end is a very shallow position, so I don't quite know, if it's worth taking, as I showed, draft results here. We'll just go to players and tight ends, show the ones that were drafted in gray here. Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Hockenson, Pitts, Andrews, Higbee, Tanyan, Thomas, Goddard, Fant. And who knows, maybe Mike Gesicki will still be available for us, but if not, we could always go the route of a new player on a new squad with, Hunter Henry, with Jonnu Smith, with Evan Ingram, Austin Hooper, formerly of Falcon fame. Any one of those tight ends I feel pretty confident in that you can get 8 to 10 points out of those tight ends per week if they're given, the right target share. This team is solid. I'm feeling confident. If this is my draft, I'm feeling pretty damn good. Josh Allen, quarterback, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, Noah Fant at tight end, Raheem Mostert, Matthew Stafford, Odell Beckham Jr., Kenny Galladay, Juju Smith-Schuster. Receiver-wise, we're set. I mean, we got 5 solid receivers with Jefferson, Metcalf, Beckham, Galladay, and Schuster. We could look to add some running back depth as well as tight end depth. We took care of the quarterbacks. Let's go here. We got Zach Moss. Zach Moss is projected as being the number 1 back in Buffalo. He did have his fair share of, touches inside the goal line. He was drafted 113th just as I clicked him. I hate it when that happens. Who could we go with here as a depth speculative ad? This is where we can have some fun here in the 12th round. Who could be that speculative ad for us at the running back position? We're starting to see that quite often. Kenyon Drake gets moved now. Jamal Williams is in Detroit. Tony Pollard. Devin Singletary. Singletary is probably the highest upside of any of these backs. Philip Lindsay as well could be somebody that breaks out for the Houston Texans. There really isn't much there in Houston besides what we have seen the last few years. But Mike Gesicki's available for us. I'm taking him. Mike Gesicki, we're able to land a tight end that I really like. Don't trust Cam quite well either. I like Gesicki. And then we'll go with Devin Singletary as a depth add there at running back for us. This is what it's all about here in the draft, to add as much depth as possible to your bench for your squad. Now the only players that we have left are the last 2 players that you should be taking in your draft. If you're reaching for a defense, you're going to come up short somewhere else, in my opinion, in terms of the depth department. Defensively, we have a few defenses out there that I really like, Buffalo being one of them. Now with Gregory Rousseau, now with Boogie Basham. I like the pass rush capability that this team could have. Kansas City rated as the number 1 defense left. Denver, Cleveland, New England. But when you zero in on Buffalo, last year they scored 118 fantasy points as a defense, 38 sacks, 15 interceptions. These numbers are projected to go up. The sack numbers for the Chiefs are expected to go up dramatically from 32 to 42. Don't know what to make of defenses. I never really seem to know what to make. I mean, average draft position for Kansas City, 121. We have Indy's defense still available, and Indy's defense is as solid a defense as any. Their bye week is week 14. So who could we go with here? 14th and 15th round to round up this defensive unit. Last year, Indy had 145 fantasy points. They were one of the best defenses in fantasy, along with the Miami Dolphins defense, which does not get enough credit as they're coached by B-Flow Brian Flores. Buffalo's got an early bye week, and you know what? I would want a defense that actually has an early bye week so I can get that out of the way. Get that crap out of here. Bye week for Indy is 14, and for Miami it's 14. So who are we going to go with here? Baker Mayfield goes extremely late, 134th overall. Kicker's got to be your last pick. I mean, if you're taking a kicker early, you're like the joke of your draft. Hunter Henry goes. I could have went Hunter Henry over Gesicki. That might have been a bad move by me, but I really like Gesicki. He's young, and he's often used. And Tua doesn't really exactly have the arm strength. Sean Watson wasn't even drafted. What does that tell you? That he's probably not going to be playing. So for the folks at home, I'm going to make this as biased as possible. I'm taking Buffalo's defense. We're going to go to kickers here. I'm going with my boy. Oh, he was picked. Wow. Tyler Bass was picked 96th overall. Well, I'm going to go with the guy in the goggles, Rodrigo Blankenship, as my kicker. So there you have it. This is a solid team. 2020 stats, this team's ridiculous. Josh Allen, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, Noah Fant, Raheem Mostert, Matt Stafford, Odell Beckham Jr., Kenny Galladay, Juju Smith-Schuster, Mike Gesicki, Devin Singletary as depth pieces there, Rodrigo Blankenship, and Buffalo's D. You go to the standings projections. Where is RT projected to finish? Number 1, right at the top. Points total. This table of total fantasy points for all teams is based on the players they've drafted based on their 2020 stats. Projected stats, I'm actually projected to finish second behind Hefe. Let's take a look at Hefe's team. Mahomes, okay. Thielen, okay. Saquon, okay. Jonathan Taylor. I'd put my team up against this guy's team any day of the week. No fear here. None whatsoever. I think my bench is much better as well. But neither here nor there. He's only projected higher than me because of Mahomes. In terms of team versus team, I think I got a better team than Hefe by a lot. I like my running backs. They're more balanced, more reliable. I like Miles Sanders over J.K. Dobbins. Jonathan Taylor's a stud. Won't throw him under the bus at all. But I like my team. And I'm thinking that this was a solid fantasy mock draft show for you guys to tune into. Nonetheless, let's close this out and wrap this show up with the thought that was a solid draft. I mean, I come away with Josh Allen, my boy, Josh Allen at quarterback, Matt Stafford for him to be picked by me. I think there was a little early. His average draft position was in the 90s, but I picked him in the 60s. There's a lot to like there with the LA Rams and Matt Stafford as a fit there. Nonetheless, I really hope you guys enjoyed this show. I got a really solid squad in this mock draft. Josh Allen, Derrick Henry, obviously Miles Sanders I'm high on. A lot to discuss as we inch closer and closer to fantasy football season as well